Good afternoon, everybody, or whatever time it is of day where you are. I'm wearing this get-up just to show you that I'm on holiday in a sunnier place than Germany. I can now remove the sunglasses so I can see you all and Jack more clearly. Anyway, Jack, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm meant to be on holiday. I kind of am. I just, I like to dip in and out of the tennis even when I'm uh, relaxing as well. So, I'm very happy to be here. Excited to talk tennis.
A staycation, Jack, it looks like, unless you've got a behind you thing and you just take it around the world with you and have that permanently behind you. I don't
No,
know, but
I am in miserable, rainy Scotland, unfortunately, but it's good. I'm enjoying it.
good. So when you're on a staycation or vacation or whatever, you try to sort of switch off a bit from tennis because sometimes I quite like to dip into it even more.
Yeah, exactly. I have tried to stay away from it, but I've kind of just been gravitating towards it. But we've got a wee tournament in Glasgow, a WK60 and a W or 25K, I should say, a W60K and a W25K. And I've been going to that in Scotstoun Leisure Centre. It's been great. So I've just been gravitating back towards it, John. It's quite difficult to stay away.
Yeah, and we've got of course, I thought you were actually going to mention the Billie Jean King Cup, which will be coming up sometime next month, I
Yeah.
think. That is actually going to impact on the main topic we're going to be talking about because, of course, there's one or two people that won't be there due to the hectic tennis schedule. That's in Glasgow, right?
It's in Glasgow. Yeah, it's in Glasgow.
Is there a vibe? Are you excited about it because it's obviously going to be in the town where you are?
I'm quite excited about it. I've not heard much of a buzz, I guess, to be fair. And I recently, I didn't get my media accreditation for it either, actually. So I've
Mm,
a little bit dampened in that regard. But I'll still be going, of course. I'll get a few tickets and stuff. I'm excited about it. There's a few players that that are down and listed. To be fair, though, that won't be attending. I'm pretty sure, like Jess Bagula, for example, and Coco Golf as well. Pretty sure those two will be too busy in Texas, right? So yeah, but it's still loads of good players, so I am
yeah.
excited overall.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a chance for some people who've had maybe disappointing years to sort of just relax and enjoy the team event. I often see it in golf. Not a huge fan of golf, but I do see certain players that sometimes with the individual pressure actually can really enjoy the team thing. By the way, Jack, I can also share in your pain of media accreditations. I've had a double whammy of rejections from Paris Bercy and the end of year finals in Turin on the ATP side. But I mean, I'm throwing my hat in the ring at the moment and seeing what happens. But maybe people out there watching will be going, John, maybe aim a little bit lower. Maybe a 250 or a 500 I should be aiming for. But unfortunately, none of them are really on the horizon. At least none that I can get to anytime soon, because I think there's Vienna and Basel on the ATP side at least, but I don't think I'll be able to make either of those. Listen, Jack, let's get to it anyway. We are here to mainly talk about the WTA Finals, obviously, which is coming up long before the ATP annual event. This year it's taking place in Texas. It was a fairly late decision about 2 months ago. Any thoughts on the choice of location?
Yeah, it's kind of come out of the blue. I actually loved Guadalajara last year. Obviously, the fact they've still got an event there, and we've now had like a 250 WTA finals and a 1000 event in the space of 365 days is quite bizarre. But I still would have liked to have seen the finals there. I thought the atmosphere was great last year. I thought, people showed up in droves to support their favorite players. Texas, we don't have any track record really of it. They've hosted a few sort of smaller events and stuff, and I think they used to host a big event very, very long ago, but haven't for quite a while now. So I suppose they have got a bit of experience, but as far as modern tennis goes, as far as a modern crowd goes, I will be surprised, I guess, if they can match Guadalajara's atmosphere. That's my thoughts on it.
Let's see. Anyway, I mean, lots to look forward to either way. And by the way, talking about locations and crowds, I've seen a bit about Naples this week. Some backfire or whatever the word is, some criticism at least regarding some crowd interference. Am I right?
Oh, I've not heard about crowd interference
Oh,
actually.
okay.
They've had a lot of different problems. That's not
Go
the
on.
problems I thought you were referencing. They had to get the court resurfaced, I think, and they
Yeah.
missed a day of play because they couldn't do it in time.
Hmm.
Players still complaining about the fact there's bumps and stuff in the surface and that. I hadn't heard anything about crowd interference, so it sounds like it's a disaster in every sense of the
I mean, I
word.
think it's just a bizarre nature, but there's also the Andrea Seppi Gate, as it's almost certainly already known. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an absolute disgrace. There's not much
It's a
sugarcoating it.
PR own goal as well. I mean,
Normally, I'd find a way to kind of be like, I can let tournaments off the hook. They've got their own agendas. You want to get people through the door. I can't see how that's not a lose. You know what I mean? Like if you had Andrea Seppi there retiring at the tournament, surely you'd get more players in the more spectators in the door. I should say it's an absolutely bizarre choice. I really don't get it.
I just think that they just weren't thinking. I don't think they made it. I don't think there was a group of people sat around a table and three people put their hands in the air and two people didn't or whatever. I don't think they even got around the table and had the discussion. But that's by the by. Anyway, once again we've digressed. WTA though is what we're here for. WTA Finals. We already obviously know that Iga and Ons, they've been long since secured of their places. I imagine Iga was probably already qualified by the summer, and Ons obviously I guess after the US Open. But we've had a few more, obviously, people confirm their places there. Jack, do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, so the other three players that are definitely going at the moment are Jess Pegula, Coco Gauff, and Caroline Garcia. Really, really bizarre year for the players that have qualified overall, apart from Swiatek and Jabeur. And Garcia even, the like Pegula and Gauff both haven't won a title this year. So it's quite odd to see players get in there without maybe winning at the very top. But I mean, Pegula has had probably the second most consistent year of anybody on the tour, right? I mean, semis pretty much every single time.
Yeah.
At the same time, still just one or maybe two finals. I think she just made Madrid Masters final right against Ons Jabeur, but she is getting deep in tournaments pretty much every time. And Coco Gauff, we can't take too much away from her. She's now the first player since Sharapova to qualify for the WTA Finals before turning 19. I think Sharapova did it in 2005. First American to do it since Davenport in 1994.
Yeah.
Loads of positives for her after making the French Open final, of course. Those three players, Garcia, I forgot to talk about Garcia. Garcia's year, I think, has been absolutely incredible. Only player to win on all three surfaces this year, of course, because Swiatek didn't manage to win on grass. So versatility through the roof, and obviously had that spell during the North American hardcourt swing where she looked untouchable up until the US Open semis, right? So
yeah,
really, really excited to see how that plays out for those three players. Are we going to talk about the other players that could qualify? Because there's certainly two at least that look very likely to get through.
Definitely, we are. But before we move on, I will just talk about some of the players you've just mentioned. Of course, Garcia did, though, come unstuck to Ons Jabeur in that semi-final in New York, and it was a bit of a mauling, actually, I felt. And I wonder if this is a one-off year from Garcia, or is this the start of something bigger and better? I've always found her a confidence player. I know we say that a lot about a lot of players, and there's one or two we can certainly see on the screen regarding that. But I'm just not sure if this is the start of things to come. I mean, how old is Garcia now, by the way?
She's 27, I want to say.
She's certainly mid to late 20s anyway. But before I sort of go too far on that, I'll probably just give it a quick check. But
she's 29.
29, actually. Exactly. Yeah. I just feel like it's been a while since Andy Murray said she's going to be a future world number one. And if she's going to become a future world number one, it's going to have to happen pretty soon. And with Iga still playing and other players. Anyway, I digress. Some of the other players, I think it's just been consistency has been the name of the game for Gauff and Pegula, really. In that they've just been remarkably consistent, and because of the Wimbledon thing, it has been a bit of a strange year. It has also been strange in that you've had Iga sweeping up 8 tournaments already, and we've not even done with the year yet, that the rest are just having to make semi-finals and finals to get their points, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going with some of the other sort of maybes anyway that we can also see one or two on the screen. Simona Halep, of course, her year is over, so she won't be there. So we have to sort of scroll down to the next person, so to speak, to see about potentials. We've obviously got Kudermetova and Sakkari there. Tell us about some of the permutations here.
Sakkari, yeah, she's looking pretty likely to get through if there's No, it depends on the other players, right? So at the moment, you've got the other 3 players below the 5 we've just mentioned in the race. If they do fairly well at Guadalajara, they should qualify. That's Sabalenka, Kasatkina, and Kudermetova. I think if Sakkari beats Kudermetova in this tournament specifically, she should qualify. So for Sakkari, her fate hangs in her own hands, right? But her year has been so. It's been a really weird year, John. I want to stress for players and fans who are fans of Sakari. It feels as though her year's been really bad. Obviously, she had that really, really upsetting tournament in Parma when she lost to Sharif, and she looked so despondent in the final. But she is making it to the latter stages of tournaments. I mean, she's 10th in the race. She's still, beat hundreds of other players to that position. It should be a really, not a positive, I guess, because she still wants to do better than previous years and stuff. And maybe it feels like she did worse than last year, but she should still take a lot of heart in the fact she's actually still in contention for the race. She's still got a good chance. She was really, really good last year in Guadalajara in the WTA Finals when she made the semis. When she can get that serve going, in particular at altitude, it's quite difficult to control the ball. So if you've got a better serve, if you've got a better first serve, and you can sort of stave off the returning prowess of your opponent, you have a pretty good chance of going forward. But saying that, Kudermetova is the other player she should be looking out for. Kudermetova's serve is also great. So it's about 50-50 for me if Kudermetova or Sakari get through, John.
Yeah. Some other players, of course, that you can't even see on the screen, and you may be wondering where they are in the race. Players like two Spanish players spring to mind as well, who've had very, very difficult years. Muguruza, last year's champion, won't be making it, I'm pretty sure. Azarenka, Paula Badosa as well, her fellow Spaniard. She was in action last night against Victoria. Azarenka had to retire through illness in the second set. She's had a pretty dreadful year. I mean, many were thinking that Paula Badosa could be a year-end number one. What has happened to Badosa this year?
It's been a pretty bizarre year for her because it's been completely different from last year, obviously. My theory would be that a lot of players have kind of worked out her game.
Okay.
And she might need to come up with something a little different. She is one of those players that isn't a counter punter so much, but isn't afraid to build the rally by hitting down the middle of the court with sort of heavier balls until she gets an opening. I think a lot of opponents have realised they need to be a little bit more risky against her, stop her sort of building the point. And it kind of seems like there's matches she would have won last year that she's only missing out to by a whisker this year, and it could continue like this, to be honest, John. I've not seen anything in her game that looks as special or as overwhelming as last year. She was sort of able to make that crazy run in Indian Wells, and I thought she fully deserved it, but it sort of feels like all of a sudden she's not winning points as easily. When you watch her, I mean, like, there's a lot of rallies that she was bossing last year that players are taking the initiative a bit earlier, and honestly, I would be more inclined to think, John, that her form will stay like this rather than go back to the sort of number one potential that people were talking about.
Yeah, right. Just looking at the screen there, we've got Danielle Collins, of course. She will be in action against Maria Sakkari in Guadalajara, so that'll be interesting to see. Danielle Collins has had when I've watched Danielle Collins, she's been phenomenal. I saw her in Australia tearing things up. I saw her in New York. I think she had spells out of the game as well this year. Nothing compared to like last year, I know, and the year before when she was out for long spells. But that'll be a really tough one. I don't know if Danielle Collins still has a chance of making it. I mean,
she does. Yes, she has to reach at least the final for a chance to qualify.
Okay, good that you've got your permutations all sorted then. What about Haddad Meyer? Is she still in the race? Or I think she lost, didn't she, early this week?
She lost second round to a fairly good player. I'll just find out for you now. But yeah, she is out of the race, unfortunately. Obviously, she did so well during the grass swing and North American hardcourt swing, but there were other parts of the year that obviously weren't. She hadn't broken out at that point, so it makes sense maybe that she's out of the running. I will tell you right now, Haddad Meyer lost to... I can't. Oh no, there it is. Yeah, she lost to Siniakova of all players.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, the way we're looking at it right now is we've got 4 guarantees, obviously, with Swiatek, Jabeur, Pegula, and Goff. Sabalenka, I think, is almost certain to make it. Garcia, I think you said, is already there as well, right? Yeah. So then that leaves Kasatkina, Kudermetova, Sakkari, and maybe Danielle Collins, albeit that her stretch is obviously the least likely. Sakkari, I think, also has a problem in that she's got to play Danielle Collins next. And the way things have been planning out in the last few months, I know that you mentioned how Sakkari's still managed to stay in the race despite having a largely disappointing year. I mean, to be honest with you, Sakkari's here. It's a bit like her compatriot on the men's side in Tsitsipas, in that, you know, they may be picking up the points and we can look at the amount of tour wins that they've had. But if you're going out early in the big tournaments and the majors and you're having crushing defeats in semi-finals and finals at Masters level, then, you know, if you're getting to the semi-finals at a 250 or 500, I mean, even the Sakkari defeat in, I think it was a 250 final recently, was really I don't know. It was really galling. I found. I think we may even have spoken about it on your podcast
Yeah.
recently, Jack. And yeah, I'm probably more concerned about Sakari than Badosa in some ways, possibly because of the age and just because there's a lot of baggage now with Sakari.
Yeah, it's you really want her to qualify and sort of pick up a year that's been full of disappointments for sure. She has got a good chance. It was Collins, right? She was against,
Yep.
and honestly,
Next, yeah.
in these conditions, I would fancy Sakari's.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but John, conditions are not the whole game, of course, and really, in reality, Collins should be the favourite, just given Sakari's form in general, right? But if they were both playing fairly decently, I would make Sakari the favourite. And honestly, because Sakari's been making it to the latter stages of tournaments, she could play well. There shouldn't be early round nerves. So there's a chance she plays well. I'm not saying Collins is the absolute overwhelming favourite. And if she does play well, again, it'll come down to how well Kudermetova does, and if she wins against Ostapenko, who I'd fancy Kudermetova to beat Ostapenko in these conditions as well.
Interestingly, Daniel Collins only featured in 11 tournaments this year. That's a real outlier amongst the top 20, really, in terms of tournaments played. But another
Yeah.
interesting thing is the top two are also keeping their powder dry a little bit. Swiatek and Jabeur with 16 and 17, or Pegula and Goff is the same. Once you start heading down, and I get the feeling with Sakari that she's constantly trying to play her way out of form. But the 20 and 21 tournaments we can see from her and maybe Kazatkina, but her and Badosa, for example, have both played 20 tournaments this year. And I'm just wondering if maybe, we see it with Rublev as well a bit, that he just seems to be just constantly playing. And I get that temptation that you want to play your way out, but sometimes maybe it might be an idea to take a break.
Yeah, probably the end of the season couldn't come soon enough for her, right? A chance to just, because she's obviously, like Rublev, probably known as one of the hardest workers on the tour, right? She, a lot of her prowess comes from how physically fit she is. A lot of it comes from how much work she puts in at the gym and stuff. So I think the end of the season couldn't come soon enough. Just a chance to reset and start afresh, right? Because she can feel a little bit trapped, maybe.
Jane here in the chat is suggesting that Collins may have a neck injury. I haven't become aware of that, but we'll soon see if that comes out. I'm sure Sakari will soon bring that to light in the way that she plays. Let us know your thoughts in the live chat if you've got any thoughts on something we've said already. But go on, Jack.
I was going to say Collins has that's been ongoing. I think Jane. I don't know if it's been affecting her this tournament, but certainly that's why she missed quite a lot of. That's why she's only played 11 tournaments. Maybe that's what Jane means.
Okay, could well be. Yeah, right. But I think it's quite remarkable that she's done so well, given that she's only played 11 tournaments. And I just wonder if somebody like Sakari could really do with maybe a bit more time away from the tour than elsewhere. But who knows? Let's see. Listen, I'd love to see Sakari have a great end of the year, because I do have a soft spot for her. Not least because I actually had a very bad prediction that was almost certainly already blown up in my face, that she would finish above Ons Jabeur in the world rankings at the end of the year. But I think even a miracle won't save me now from that bet I had with JG. Listen, let's move away a bit now from the WTA Tour and the WTA Finals. Anything else that's grabbed your attention? We've obviously had some of the controversy in Naples regarding Seppi Gate, as I called it just before we went on air. Any thoughts on Seppi's absence, shall we say? He's obviously just retired. That's the main story. He's announced his retirement. And what perfect timing, because we've got a tournament in southern Italy just taking place right now. Oh, hello.
Yeah, but obviously he's not going to be there. So it's just such a shame. It really is a disgrace, and for somebody of Seppi's caliber not to be retiring on his own terms it's really sad for sure. And I mean, I don't know who looked at his ranking and thought this guy's not high ranked enough to play the tournament, because that would make sense. That should be the only criteria for him not playing, because nothing else makes sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me, but I'm just saying somebody's made that mistake, surely. They've seen he's like 250 in the world and said, this guy's not going to get to play the tournament. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's no good for ticket sales. It's no good for anyone at all. Obviously, he's 38 years old, so probably just about the right time in many respects to retire. Became the first Italian to win on all three surfaces as well. Sometimes we forget, obviously, with players like Berrettini and Sinner on the agenda these days, that actually Italian tennis hasn't really been a thing. Obviously, we've got the end of year finals now taking place in Turin, which is obviously excellent news for all tennis lovers in northern Italy. Some great news for tennis lovers in southern Italy, obviously, with this tournament in Naples taking place. But sadly, they didn't get to see Andrea Seppi have the bow out, the goodbye that he deserved.
Yeah, it's only honestly only the last 2 years that we've seen. I think about 10% of the top 100 are Italian, and you go down to even 1 to 300, I should say, and there's so many Italians on the rise, and it's just the amount of money that Italy have poured into their up and comers, and they're all coming in the same generation now of Musetti and Sinner, etc. It's great. But yeah, Seppi they should be celebrating that. He should be a flag bearer. You were saying about him being 38, and we kind of forget that the age of players into their late 30s is abnormal because of Federer retiring at 41, obviously, right? But he was the second oldest player in the top 300. Verdasco was the oldest. Like these two guys they should be celebrated as vets of the sport. So it's really sad. And yeah, 38 is nothing to sniff at. It really should be an accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, Federer's the not the norm, certainly in terms of the age and many of these players. I'm just going to be a bit mischievous here and suggest that perhaps, given the divisions I'm aware of between North and South in Italy, and he's from South Tyrol, which don't be deceived by the name. It's actually on the north tip of Italy. In fact, it sort of has its own culture in itself, and many German speakers there. In fact, I believe maybe even Sinner maybe from nearby. And maybe the mischievous side of me says, you know what, the Southern Italians want to just ignore anyone from that region. But listen, on a more serious note, as I said to you before we went on there, I just think the discussion didn't take place. I don't think that there was, 6 bigwigs sat around a table going, you know what, shall we hands in the air, who thinks Seppi should be here? I don't even think they got that far because it really is a no-brainer. I mean, more tickets would hopefully be sold as well. And it would just be a great way for him to bow out. I have no idea when the next tournament is going to be in Italy. Obviously, we've got the end of year finals in Turin, but that's sort of a separate issue. I'm just wondering, maybe Rome next year will be the next, or maybe there might be a clay tournament in the spring. I don't know. It's just such a pity that he hasn't had a chance to bow out in Italy. I think you're on mute.
So I am, yes, I am, sorry. There'll be plenty of challengers in Italy over the next few months. If a challenger did approach him and said, look, do you want to retire at this tournament instead?
I mean, that's...
Yeah, like what's the grandest difference between a 250 and a challenger worth half the points, right? If you could get a home crowd there supporting you for a few more rounds to bow out on, then I think that would be quite a fitting way to go out. And I don't think Seppi will be too bothered if it's a 250 or a challenger, right? So I think that would be quite a good way to retire, definitely.
Italy, get it done. That's what we're saying on definitely. That topic. Any more things to round up, particularly on the ATP side? We've obviously got the end of year finals there coming up soon. Still lots to be decided there. Yeah. Obviously, we've got. Will Rafa play? Do you think?
Yeah, you mentioned this last time, John. Right? I think he will. He's always keen, and I think people might think just because he's pretty bad at the tournament relatively, and obviously that's relative because actually he's still had some very good results there despite not winning the tournament. He's had years where he's looked really, really difficult to beat. The year that made that comeback against Medvedev and stuff, and you were saying that yourself, right? He was quite unlucky to not qualify for the semis that year. So like he'll be hungry to win the tournament. I don't think it's any secret that Nadal's one of the most competitive players ever. So I think he'll be keen to go there and give it a shot, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's more likely that he would do both Paris. He's on the list for Paris. So he's not pulled out as yet. That tournament due to get underway in 10 days from now. I think it's more likely he'll do both than just the end of year because he's certainly practicing indoors. There's been loads of footage of him continuing the practice. Obviously, he's had a child recently. Him and his wife Maria. I think her name's Maria. I hope I've got her name right. But anyway, him and his wife have had a baby recently, so that's obviously been a distraction. He's had some injury problems throughout the year. We have this conversation every year about Nadal, but this year in particular. So my suspicion is yeah, if I had to say he'll play both, he's on the list. He's not pulled out yet. He's normally pretty good with pulling out. I remember Wimbledon last year, the day of the ticket sales, he made the announcement just before they went on sale, basically. I'm pulling out of Wimbledon, so he tends to be fairly respectful of that. So my suspicion is, but I have no idea, I have no contacts or anything like that. I did get a connection on LinkedIn though today, a notification saying I'm now connected with a coach from the Rafa Nadal Academy. I don't know if that happened because they've seen some of my YouTube clips of my incredible tennis, or just lots of potential there. Age 43, I was going to say 42. I just turned 43 a couple of days ago, but anyway, so that's my feeling on Rafa. Looking at some of the other players, obviously Djokovic has recently qualified. I mean, I say recently qualified, winning Wimbledon, having that sort of fallback option, and then there being no points there, it's all a bit strange. And he had to be in the top 20 to be guaranteed of that. But obviously, with his form of late, he's going to be there, and that'll make the tournament more exciting. Alcaraz is there as well. Tsitsipas, I think, too. I think there's just a couple of places left available.
Yeah, Rude there as well, right? So
Rude's there too, yeah.
We're looking at a race between Felix. Yeah, definitely. He'll have a really good chance after the way he played the other day. Kind of, obviously still didn't have that confidence going into finals, right? So to get a pretty comfortable win against JJ Wolf in Florence was really impressive, and it makes him look indoors. He should be one of the best players in the world. So he'll have a really good chance of qualifying. And Medvedev hasn't even qualified yet, which is obviously a bizarre thing to be saying, but he'll be likely to qualify. It's really between Felix, Taylor Fritz, and Hubert Hurkacz, I think. Although Hubert Hurkacz maybe, I think that Felix and Fritz are probably two that are closest in contention. Everybody else is just a little bit too far away, I think. So it'll be interesting to see who gets through between those two.
What regarding Medvedev, there's obviously an injury concern there as well. Whether he'll be fit for Paris, don't know. Whether he'll be fit for ATP, more likely, obviously, than Paris, obviously, given the time scale. But let's assume that everyone is fit and going to be there, as in Rafa. We're looking at really, I think, Rublev Rublev and Medvedev not qualified yet, but they should be there, I would have thought. Then it's basically between, for the last two places, you've got Felix, Taylor Fritz. Sorry, the last place, I should say.
Because Djokovic.
Yeah. So the last place will be probably between Felix, Taylor Fritz, and Hubert Hurkacz. Zverev, of course, is falling down the rankings, and I don't expect to see him on a tennis court until next year either, given his injury situation. So yeah, basically one place, Felix, Taylor, or Hubie. I'd love to listen. Nothing against Hubie Hurkacz or Taylor Fritz. Actually, it's a bit harsh on Taylor Fritz because he's had a pretty good year, I would say, in terms of consistency. Obviously, winning Indian Wells, going deep at all the majors. But I guess not going past the first round in New York would probably be what ultimately costs him if he doesn't make it.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair enough. Well, obviously won Tokyo as well, right? Just last
recently,
week.
Yeah,
and that was coming back from COVID and stuff. So I don't think I think he deserves to get through because he's had some amazing runs this year. The quarters at Wimbledon as well, of course, and that's the same for Jannik Sinner. Those two players, missing out on those points and really should be a little bit higher up in the race there. I would have said, and obviously Nick Kyrgios as well. It pains me to say should have an extra 1,200 points in his pocket, which would put him about 8 in the race. So he kind of should have qualified too. But we can't talk about that all day, and it's the same with Alina Rybakina more so on the women's side, because of course Djokovic still gets the benefit of having won Wimbledon. Rybakina does not. So it does feel very unjust, and that's going to be the lasting impression for me, especially for Fritz here as well, who really should be just a little bit higher up. I think if he just misses out, it would be pretty painful for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be between him and Felix. I guess it depends on how they get on over the next 10 days, or in particular in Paris, at the beginning of November. Okay, listen, Jack, it's been great to have this fairly spontaneous chat with you. Both of us have gone in a bit blind in that we've both sort of dipped out of tennis over the last week or two, but we'll definitely be dipping back into it, particularly as with the WTA Finals coming up. I'm guessing the WTA Finals is on the same week as Paris-Bercy.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah,
it's starting November 1st, I think, and then
so Paris-Bercy's 31st I think Paris-Bercy maybe starts on a Sunday, but anyway, yeah, they're both going to be alongside each other, competing for our attention, and I'm sure that they will be getting our attention in a big way. Okay, listen, Jack, thanks for stopping by, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Enjoyed that.
Make sure you follow Jack, by the way, on Twitter, and obviously check out his podcast. Every now and again, you may hear my dulcet tones on there, or you may get lucky and find somebody else. But listen, Jack, yeah, thanks once again, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, John. See you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.